This is the Cripescast. I'm your host, Charlie Behrens, and we are powered by Everlight Solar. Here's this week's episode. Hey, everybody. How we doing? Welcome to another episode of the Cripescast. This week, we are talking to Anders and Davin Lindwall. That is the director and the producer of the upcoming film Green and Gold in theaters January 31st. If you don't know about Green and Gold, I'm in it. So there's more to know, though. It stars Craig T. Nelson. And it is all about farming. It's all about family. It's all about the Packers. It's all about Culvers. So, I'm not sure what else you need to know other than I think it's a pretty good movie. It was cool to see how a couple guys who grew up in the UP, they come from a farming in their family, and they grew up in sort of small town America, and they really found a lot of heart to put into this film. It's about the 93 Packers season. That's right, when Brett Favre kind of came and the team sort of started going in an upward trajectory after going in kind of a downward trajectory for like a couple decades there. So it was fun to sort of relive that season. And anyway, it was great getting insight from Anders and Davin into what it actually took to make this film on a shoestring budget. And they could have gotten more money. They could have had this whole thing be easier if they just shot it outside Wisconsin. But they said, no, obviously you have to stay true to the heart of the film and everything. They shot it in Wisconsin, in Door County, beautiful Door County. And I just think it's an incredible film. And it was great talking with these guys. I think you're going to enjoy it. And so, yeah, I will just shut up. And here it is, ladies and gentlemen, my conversation with Green and Gold director and producer Anders and Davin Lindwall. So, Davin, you're sitting there in San Diego. Anders, where are you at?
I'm in Colorado. Yeah.
There you go.
Near Wyoming. Yeah. Yep. Right on the border there. So
nice. Getting a little R&R in?
Yeah. I'm just totally hanging out, not doing much this week. It's pretty slow. No, I would say it's the busiest week of my entire life. So, yeah, it's been so busy.
Yeah. What's it like? I mean, first of all, Green and Gold is coming out on January 31st, and it's a nationwide release. And it's in 800 Marcus theaters?
It's in, I think it's in 942 theaters plus another 100 Canadian theaters. But I don't remember how many Marcus has themselves. I think Marcus has under 100 just total Marcus theaters. David, maybe you know that better than I do.
Yeah, Marcus is around 100. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, at least I misheard then, but at least we got that straight. So people pretty much around the country can see this film somewhere close by come the 31st. And then how does that work? You spend all this time, I shot 3 years ago, and then you were writing it probably 2 years before that. So 5 years of work collectively comes down to this opening day at the box office. Does that then determine how long it stays in theaters?
Yeah, it can. Yeah, it certainly can. The opening weekend is pretty crucial. So, depending on how those numbers shake out, certain theater groups will decide to hold you over or release you. So, just being an independent film, you don't have the luxury of, a big studio backing you that can get you a guaranteed 4-week run or something. So, we kind of live and die on that opening weekend in a lot of ways, which is terrifying. But
so get out and see the film, everybody. Get Packers fans, we need you here. Get out and see the film.
Need you quick.
That's been our call. Yeah.
So, let's take everybody back to what was the inspiration for this film. Where did it begin? Who's Anders, you directed, and what was it your idea off the top of the deal, and where did it come from?
I think it was probably my idea, but then we were trying to pitch a few different films, and then Davin had the idea. We'd be in meetings, we would be pitching. There was another movie that we were really excited about, and we'd walk out of those investor meetings, and Davin would be like, "Dude, we got to pitch the Packer story. This thing is it's so much more commercially viable, and investors will catch it immediately. And I was like, yeah, cool. Let's do a few more meetings on this other movie. And then Davin really is the sensible one in the brotherhood here. I'm much more just like ideas and passion, and So, but it was, our grandfather was a dairy farmer. And so we always thought when we look around at movies that were, revolving around the agriculture community, there was some crazy Disney stuff that goes on out there. It's like, it just looks so fake. Or, you have something like on the opposite end, which is like way more like extreme and violent and, so, but there was never, it didn't feel like there was, at least in the last 20 years, a movie that was farmer focused, and especially like in the upper Midwest. I don't know many films at all that are shot up there about that culture that aren't like a horror movie or Fargo. So it was, I think, then the Packers part of it was just like an obvious, like when we were thinking about the story, we were Googling around and we were shocked that, Silver Linings Playbook has the Eagles, Little Giants has the Cowboys, Giants in it. It's like, but how has there never been a Packers movie? You're talking about the second largest, or the largest. I don't know. I think they're.
We'll go with largest.
Yeah, they're the largest. Yeah. NFL organization not having a story about its fans or about it at all, other than documentary and that kind of thing. So that's when I think we had the realization, like, yeah, we should. And it was literally our first conversation with an investor about this idea. It was like, yeah, I'm in. So, that's when it all started.
That's cool. And Davin, from a producing standpoint, for people who don't really know anything about film, what is involved with being a producer?
Yeah, that's a loaded question, especially on the independent level, because I always joke that the title of producer got dissipated on day two, because you just, you don't have a lot of the formalities of the bigger Hollywood studio realm of production. Just, it goes away on the independent side. Like, you got to pick up the pieces and you got to do whatever it takes to make the thing happen. So, I think in like pre-production, it was a bit more formal, from like, high level, getting our crew together, to casting directors, to, contractual agreements with investors, all the non-exciting stuff that is necessary to make it happen in pre-production. Like, that was pretty formal, but come production, it's like, hey, where can we lend a hand? Like, what pieces are needed here that aren't here? How do we manage this budget that is quickly getting spent in a matter of 18 days? And so it's a lot of that kind of stuff, but it's super fun, I think, too, because as a producer, you get to be a part of the whole thing, right? Like, from start to finish, all the pieces of it, like, you get to have a fingerprint on. So this being my debut as a independent producer is, I'm super proud of it and what we accomplished. So
I think one of probably the biggest production wins was getting Craig T. Nelson on board. And how did you go about doing that? Just call him up, or send him a tweet? How'd that work?
Yeah, just so we had DMs.
Yeah, we DM'd him on MySpace.
Yeah,
but he, our casting director, they took a flyer on us. They're like a legit casting duo, and it was actually Davin's wife said, you guys should have Craig T. Nelson, because oddly enough, Davin and I don't watch any movies almost ever, and we're so pop culture illiterate, and but his wife was like, you should get Craig. And we looked at his stuff and realized, young kids would go bananas for him, from young Sheldon all the way up to like Gen Zers are with Parenthood. We know him as Coach from the 90s, and then beyond that, people know him from Poltergeist, and the list goes on and on. So he kind of spans the whole world. But he, our casting director, we said, we want Craig in our first call with them. And they like totally laughed at us. Like, yeah, guys. Okay. Who else? And we were like, we want Craig. And they're like, okay, well, you better get your list going for who's plan B, but we can pass it to him. They're like, crazy stuff happens. So, and then the next day they said, sure as hell, you guys, he wants to talk to you. So,
Wow.
yeah, so he just called us the next day and he interviewed us. So, Craig doesn't audition anymore. It's not like a thing he does, but he wanted to interview us. And I think he resonated with the depth and the soul of the story. And he kept saying over and over, he's like, he's like, these are the type of values that I grew up with and that I love and I try to convey to my kids. And so he said, this is the type of project that I want to now be a part of and do when I'm not, doing the Hollywood shuffle. So, so he bought in super hard, Charlie. As you can tell, he flies out to Wisconsin for us. He flew out to Iowa for us, or Indiana for us. And then, he's just so gracious and has been so over the moon about the project in a way that I never would have thought. So
he sang the national anthem for us.
Yeah, he sang the national anthem at the Packers game. Yeah.
Yeah, as an 80-year-old man, in 20-degree weather. So
he did a great job. And then he came over and we got to sit in the leap seats for a minute, which was cool. I was like, I didn't want to go back. I was like, these are the best seats I've ever had at a Packers game.
Yeah, we were saying the same thing. We're like, this is a treat. It was super fun to be down there.
So, and then Craig, did you just send him the script and he read the script, or was there sort of a Bible that he read? Like, if people don't know, Bible is you just put together a bunch of characters from your thing and convey the general idea. But did he read a script, or how'd that go?
Yeah, he read the script, and then we had what's called a rip reel. This is kind of like our IP, I would almost call it, because it's how we sort of sell our ideas. Is we make a trailer of all different kinds of material that has the feeling of the movie. And so we sent him the script and then what the movie would feel like in 3 to 5 minutes. And that's, I think, what he had and went off of.
And for people who don't know, the story revolves around Craig and also Madison. And Buck is Craig T. Nelson's character, and he plays kind of like every Midwest grandpa you've ever met in your life. And he is a farming guy. He's an old school farmer, very old school, like a horse and two horses and a plow kind of a guy. There's a joke about him farming like the Amish. He kind of really has this dedication to the land and the work ethic, and says, where mankind started going wrong was not having his hands in the dirt. That's kind of his thing. But he really plays sort of that like gruff, crotchety, old farming guy that everybody kind of knows in some way or another if they're in the Midwest. And Madison plays his granddaughter, who is looking to kind of find her own aspirations in music and art, and that sort of is their conflict throughout the film. And without giving too much away, I'll leave it there. But what was it that made you want to have Buck, Craig T. Nelson's character, be like a farmer that wasn't even really using a tractor? Was that a common thing in the early 90s? You guys said that your grandparents were farmers. Was that the kind of farming they did? Why did you make that choice as opposed to kind of an old tractor that he would use or something like that?
No, it's a good question. I think we've actually, when I look at comments right now in the trailer, it's like, that's one of the main comments people make is like, that's no farmer. And it was more of a playful choice, to be honest with you. Because it was based on this writer, Wendell Berry, who's what you might consider a neo-Luddite, who his writings have inspired a lot of the movie and looking at like the loss of rural communities and that kind of thing. But we thought it was, as a character, you're looking for extremes, right? Like what can make this guy really interesting? And we thought a guy who's, farms like it's the 1800s, wish it was super like old school, but then he's got such a weakness for the Packers. It's like, that's his compromise, is he's like, man, I would live if I could back then, but I just love the Packers too much. We thought that was just like a great way of just kind of accentuating it. But, really it's just I've come across a few different farmers who live in that neo-Luddite realm, and it's few and far between, and they're doing it on a micro scale. Like it's not a way you can, viably make a living doing farming really anymore, unless you're going to live to the extreme like the Amish. So, but it was, I think it was more than anything just a choice of extremes and playfulness of showing just like the dichotomy of him and his granddaughter in such different places. She's all about future and thinking ahead, and he's way much more in the past. So,
yeah. And then you see this conflict kind of arise, and what the choice of making her a musician and him kind of being so against that. Why did you choose musician? Is that something that you kind of had in your background, or?
Yeah, we did have a lot of music in our background. Like we grew up, our folks, sang in the church choir, were dragging us into that kind of thing too, which we hated, but we did, and, came to appreciate later on in life. But I think, I think in general, there's something about music that'll probably be infused to all of our projects, to be honest with you. I think to me, music is kind of the highest form of art. It lives in this abstract realm. And I think it can span a lot of different things that other visual arts can't. So I think that was the main reason for it. But Jenny's story, I only realized later on in some of the drafts that I was actually writing my own life story, which was, growing up in, kind of a rural, with agrarian community roots, and then leaving to go to the city, chasing your dream, and then, coming to realize what you've been missing the whole time. So that is a really, a narrative that I only discovered was way closer to home than I thought. So
where did you guys grow up again?
We grew up in Iron River, Michigan, right on the border there of the UP and Wisconsin.
Yeah, and so your grandparents were dairy farmers.
Yeah.
And did you both have farming experience kind of growing up, or was it more through your grandparents?
Yeah, we were pretty removed from it. Our grandfather's dairy operation shut down in, I don't know, was it the 80s?
Yeah, late 70s. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we weren't a part of that. But the farm was always held on to by our family, which is awesome. So we grew up going there, a couple of times a year. And it was still being farmed by we called him Cousin Harry, which is classic up there. I'm sure everybody's got a Cousin Harry. But he would, he still farms it to this day, for, just for crops really. But yeah, it was always in the family. So we grew up just, having, the land, we would hunt on it every year. That was like hunting season. But yeah, I grew up just with that a part of just in our DNA. And, our cousins were involved in 4-H and FFA. So we were around it a lot. Anders and I certainly never milked by hand ourselves, but yeah, I think
I had a horse.
Oh, yeah, you did have a horse. You had a horse. Yeah.
You did have a horse, or no? Did you? The way you said it was like you stole a horse.
No, I didn't steal. Our dad traded it in on a car deal.
Really?
I'm serious. Yeah, he traded because I was obsessed with livestock and horses, and he said, "Okay, I got this guy who owes me some cash. Maybe he's got a couple horses. You want one of those?" And so I was like, "Yeah, I'll take one." So so I had a horse. That was how I had a horse as a kid.
The horse was as wild as the previous owner too.
Exactly.
It was a crazy horse, and it was always we'd always get calls that the horse was loose somewhere like around town.
Just hanging out, walking through downtown.
Yeah, mostly by the hospital. There was some rich fields by the hospital that it would go down and hang out in, and so I'd have to go down there and wrangle it back. So,
nice.
But that was Anyways, but you can keep going, David.
Oh no, yeah, that's kind of it. It was just that it was the culture was very, very much just kind of baked into our DNA. So even though we weren't farming ourselves, we were very familiar with it, and in the culture of it for sure.
Got it. And so then, did you always have filmmaking as sort of your goal, or was this something where you kind of graduated, you went off, you did your own thing, and you kept it as the passion project. How did that work for you guys?
Yeah, we had, I think for me, I was more into film than Davin was. He came into it later than I did, but to me, it was always something we had, I had an interest in and wanted to do. But, it's like, how do you become a film director? It's the same way as like, how do you become a famous comedian like yourself, Charlie? It's like, there's no real direct path to it. You kind of like find your way slowly through different things and different wins. And so, yeah. But we just made, when I started working first and I just started getting into commercials, and then Davin joined me on that. And so we did commercials for a lot of years. And then I was in Philly, and I did some documentary work on M. Night Shyamalan and Will Smith and kind of their collaboration. And during that process, Night, for those of you who don't know, he did like Signs, Sixth Sense, that kind of movie. He was always telling me like, dude, you got such a unique point of view. You should tell your own story sometime. And so, for us, it was like, just pay the bills until we can get an opportunity to figure out how to do it. And that's, but you're talking like a 15 to 20 year journey to get here. So it's a long haul.
Yeah. And you the same way I became a comedian, seemingly the same way you became a director, which is just by writing. And, if you write it, you can, and you do it yourself, you go independently, you can direct it. And so the choice to actually film this in Wisconsin is very unique. So many films about Wisconsin are not even filmed here because there aren't any tax credits. Now, how did you settle on that decision to film in Wisconsin? And was this, were you ever considering not due to the tax credits? Like, let's dive into that a little bit. How much of a help would tax credits be? And what was it? Was it tough making the decision to do it despite there not being any?
I mean, yeah, the tax credits are a huge advantage, like, yeah, there's kind of no way around that. Like, and we were obviously very conscious of that when we went into this production process of like, we actually scouted quite a few farms on the Minnesota side of Wisconsin. So, cause there's, that area obviously can feel, very similar to the Southwest Wisconsin region. So that's something we look pretty heavily at. But I think in our guts, we kept coming back to like, man, this, for it to feel like the story that we wrote on paper, that's been on our hearts and in our guts for so long. Like, this thing has to be in northern Wisconsin. Like, and I think Anders and I both felt that, and we scouted and tried to get past that in our minds, but. We both kept.
David, do you remember the Colorado? They offered us 20% to shoot in Colorado. Actually,
forgot about that.
And so that's a 20% coupon on all your expenses. That's a big cost saving.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Anders. I forgot, and we actually, because we actually looked to shoot like 50% of it in Colorado. Then like fly all of our, do all of our like landscape stuff. Anything that like has to be Wisconsin there, and then shoot all like the other things on farms. I forgot about that. We scouted and chatted with a few farms in Colorado to try to take advantage of that. But I think ultimately, I think it just came down to a deliberate choice of it just feeling like authentically from one area, and which ended up being Door County, which I, looking back now that we're at this stage, like I'm so glad we made that choice. Because I think it does come across in the film, like you feel it. And we've had a lot of people tell us that, like, man, this thing feels so real and true and authentic. And we're like, well, yeah, because it is. Like, we had to make that choice. And we actually got a call, speaking of choices, we got a call like 2 weeks before going into our first day of shooting. And it was from a bigger studio in LA, and they had caught our script had been passed across their desk and from a partner of ours, and they read it and loved it, and they made us a pretty decent offer, still the best offer we've gotten to this day. And but the caveat was they wanted to shoot it in a tax advantage state in the South, actually. And they wanted us to push like 6 months or a year due to kind of their streaming deals that they had set up in place. And so we ended up turning them down just because we're like, it didn't feel right to the project, and to the farmers and to all the people that had been right there with us, holding us up to get us to that point. We're like, man, I feel like this is not doing right by the project. And so we ended up turning that down. But so we really planted our flag in Wisconsin pretty hard, and have had to live with that choice daily. But I think, we both felt like it was the right thing to do.
So, but definitely the more expensive choice. You definitely turned down a lot of money to double down on Wisconsin.
Yeah. We joke like it felt like the art was imitating life. Like our story. I was
gonna say,
where you're like, Jenny, without giving away, has a choice, right, to make. And what do you choose? Do you choose money or heart or what is right? So.
Yeah, very much hard imitating life with that. Folks, excuse the interruption, but I want to let you know that we are powered by Everlight Solar. We got those solar panels on the roof, and they are saving me money and helping saving the environment too. If you think that your house could use some solar panels, just go to everlightsolar.com. Give them a call. They'll come over. They'll give you a free consultation. You can't beat a free anything, okay? So go to the website. Have them come over, see if solar panels are right for you. And folks, Valentine's Day, it's right around the corner, and there is no better way to tell someone you love them than with some Midwest merch. Say I love you with Watch Out for Deer t-shirts and hats. We got the Barron's Old Fashioned Brandy Muskie glasses. Those are back in stock. We have a ton of other things too. Cribbage boards, cards, bottle openers, hoodies, the whole deal. Check it out, manswalkminute.com. All right, let's get back to my conversation with Anders and Davin Lindwall. How did you settle on Door County? Did you know someone there with a farm, or did you, how did that go?
A lot of this was like Davin had moved up here. He like brought his family back for a couple months, and Davin would just be driving around areas. And then he would, then I would fly in and take a look at it and that kind of thing. And Door County was, it had the advantage of, it's right on the lake. So you have farms and lakes right around each other, which is, I think pretty iconic to Wisconsin and has that feel like down in Sheboygan, Manitowoc kind of area too. It's just like big, beautiful landscapes like that with farms and water. And then, it was near Lambeau because we knew we needed to shoot a scene in Lambeau. And then, so you didn't have to like move the crew, in our short 18 days. You don't have to pack up and lose money and time when you're just moving people. So, then it was close to an airport, having an airport nearby. And then, I think the other big factor was it's a very art friendly area. And that makes a big difference. Similar to like the tax credits, these factors play in when you're an independent film or just even studio film. It's like, how friendly is the neighborhood to you shutting down a street for them, and how willing are businesses to help chip in and, kind of promote good things around them that, like the arts. So I think when it was art friendly and close to airports, and then Davin got to know a few of the farmers, a few good connections there. And then I think it just became really obvious. What we didn't realize is how hard it is to find a place to stay there in the fall. That was an eye-opening experience for us. But all the hotels were like trying, they were like opening up their janitor rooms for people to sleep in almost for us just to help us out. So, that was. But it's such a special area up there. I mean, half the crew wanted to buy real estate up there after the film and just move there. So
yeah, it is a beautiful place. And you got a peak color season. So everyone's going up there to look at the trees and eat cherries at that point. Peak tourist time. So it is cool. And then like, what is it about the Packers that sort of brings all this together? Like, what does sort of being a Packers fan say about like the farming communities and sort of that sense of hard work? And why is this the thing that Buck, the main character, who's kind of stuck in the 1800s, why does he choose the Packers? What is so special about the Packers that makes that a thing?
Yeah, I think it's, Buck, when you're inside Lambeau and you look around at people, you just have this overwhelming sense of just like good, hardworking, honest people. And you have, they're the only community-owned sports team, I think, in America, right?
Yeah.
And so I think there's just this symbolism of, also because there's not as much going on up there. It's really like such a cultural spectacle, One funny memory I have was we were caroling as kids, like our folks, speaking of the singing background, they would take us caroling and at Christmas time, and we went into this nursing home, and it was on a Sunday, and they took us up front, and it was a game day, and they're playing the Packer game in this, in kind of the cafeteria, and all, it's packed with all these old folks in the nursing home watching the game. And then they bring us carolers in and they turn off the game, and it almost caused a riot in the place. They were like yelling at us. We were trying to figure out how to write that scene into the movie, but it's so indicative of the overall spirit of, even folks who are in their 90s, late in their 90s, are just so passionate about this spectacle. And there's something, about, it seems like the team kind of represents the spirit of the area in a way that I don't think other NFL teams do. So, yeah, I mean, I think that was, and we've drank that Kool-Aid. We weren't above that.
Yeah.
We've been lifelong Packers fans. And so, yeah, I think we understand it on a deeper emotional level. And I get mad at myself for how sad I get when they lose. And just, I get mad at myself for how much hope I have going into the next season too.
Yeah. And focusing on the 93 season, why did you choose that season as your sort of backdrop?
Yeah, there were kind of for a few reasons. I mean, we shot in the 90s, kind of deliberately, and then picked that window of time for the Packers because it was like right when we were entering the Favre era. And so, obviously Packer fans know that 90s run could look either really good or really bad. And so that was intentional too, of trying to pick a period of Packers history where you don't know the ending, right? And that's obviously a big part of our the film story. So but then just nostalgia too. I mean, Anders and I grew up watching that era, super fond of it, and a lot of the players, and even Leroy Butler making a cameo, and we give a nice nod to the Lambeau leap. And so all that stuff is, it plays into the story for sure, but it also it plays into Anders and I's background for sure as well. So
yeah, it's very cool. And you got Wayne Larrivee doing the play-by-play throughout. So there's so many like hidden gems in there for Packers fans to like really enjoy and kind of relive that as well. What was sort of the hardest part about making this film on like the day to day with the crew and everybody there in Wisconsin?
Yeah, I think it's probably different. I bet Anders and I maybe have somewhat similar answers, but some differences too. But I think you have such a short run of time. So we shot for 18 days, 6-day weeks. So we were on we had Sundays off, but that day was just like a day of like to wake up and be like, what happened? Like try to reorient yourself going into the next week. And I think just we produced a lot in 3 weeks, from a couple hundred farm animals to hundreds of extras. You're on location with real farms, a calf birth. We threw a lot at ourselves, I think, in such a short window. So there's just a lot of, it's just a hefty production. And we've had people's, pretty shocked by the amount of production value we were able to achieve with our kind of budget and time. And a lot of that's just due to the area that we shot in and had connections in. But a lot of my challenges were production related. Anders maybe was more like fatigue of the overall thing. But
Yeah. I think for me, like the major challenge is like, as a director, you're kind of the raw guy. So it's like you just don't, in the independent world, you don't have the luxury of time of like flying everybody in, have a summer camp experience of getting to sit around the campfire and share stories. It's like people are flying in, like I'm meeting Craig, we're sitting down having dinner with him in Madison, we're rehearsing the next day, teaching farming stuff, and then we're just going. And so I don't think the outside world has any idea of the amount of stress, the pace at which these variables are being thrown at you. Like even some of the other YouTube comments are like, where's the accents? It's like, I can't have accent training in a day and a half with somebody. Like we just don't have that luxury in the independent world. You're just fighting to make sure the camera has a card in it so you can press record. Yeah, that's probably what I would say. It's just the sheer amount of variables and condensed into such a short amount of time. So
I love all the YouTube comments really living rent free inside your head. You just put out this like beautiful thing and then it just gets nitpicked by the world.
Tear it apart. Yeah. It's funny. There's, what is that? Winston Churchill says, like, anytime he's like, if you stop to throw a stick at every dog that barks at you, you never get anywhere in the world. And I've like had to start to listen to, be like, oh yeah, I can't worry about these comments. I've never had that in my life. So this is a new thing for us. I'm sure you have plenty of that in your
you just keep chugging forward. And that's exactly it. You keep her moving, as you say. And I've never seen a live calf birth in a movie before. That was, you only get one take at that, did you have a vet there on standby or a farmer there on standby to kind of show Madison like how to do it, or how did that work out?
Yeah, you certainly only get one take. We only got one take too, which is crazy. But we actually shot it. So we ended up shooting that calf birth separately. So it ended up being in the same exact stall, but we tried to record it in our kind of 18-day window. We had a second camera team that was like on standby, and like all the area farmers knew like we're trying to catch this calf birth. So they were on like speed dial for us. And so they would like give us a call and be like, hey, we've got one going into labor. And our team would like shoot over there, try to catch it. And, like any sort of labor, there's unexpected variables and we'd miss it, or something would happen and it would complicate and take 2 hours longer, whatever. So we ended up shooting that calf birth following January, and it was just Anders and I. So Anders and I hunkered down over Christmas break and in a maternity ward of a barn up in Door County, like National Geographic, in 10-degree weather, and just waited. We just sat there for like a full 18 hours waiting for one of these cows to go into labor. And we didn't catch it then, but as we were leaving, it was our vet that was on our production. She's a farmer locally, and her family had a dairy farm, and she called us. She's like, guys, I've got a cow going into labor in the exact stall. So we sprinted over there and we caught it then.
Wow. I mean, and then through the wonders of close-ups, and you made it look very seamless.
Yeah, you're seeing what Madison's pulling on is like I think it's deer legs painted white, if I'm not mistaken, with like some kind of pink goop that our production designer team made. And so yeah, it surprises me even now when I watch it that I'm just lost in the world of it, because just how seamless it kind of all worked out.
I've got a background video, a BTS video of Anders and I shooting that, actually, that I just stumbled into recently. And it is funny to like think about, because when we shot it, like Anders is saying, it's like deer legs, our production designers laying underneath like a cowhide, like moving around to like imitate a cow, and there's like lights everywhere, a huge crew. And then our BTS video of actually shooting the thing is like Anders and I just like sprinting around in the dark, like trying to catch it. But yeah, it totally cuts together seamlessly, which is kind of amazing.
Well, congrats to you guys on that. That's pretty cool. And the whole film. What do you kind of give for advice to people looking to like do their own film, especially the way Hollywood is kind of in this hit or miss place. That's a weird way to say it. Hollywood is in a place where it's been hit by COVID, and then the writers strike, the crew strike, and now AI, the emergence of AI, and sort of studios not sure if they're going to invest their money in films. What do you have to say to emerging filmmakers who still love the art of film, still see a future in it? What advice do you give them?
Yeah, I'd look at being a plumber personally, like getting the trades. Yeah, no, I mean, I think if you have a vision for it, you have to be faithful to that, and you have to continue to steward that. I think it's nasty tough, I think on our families, on our physical well-being. David and I are almost bald now from this process. But I think you also don't need all the even like the stuff that you make, Charlie. It's like you don't need a lot to make it anymore. And I think that's what we've been retroactively, when more conventional distributors have looked at our film, they can't believe the budget we made it for. And that's because, we grew up in more of this digital cinema area where it's, you need one light kind of coming through the window and then just a good set of glass on there, and it can look really amazing. So I think, but yeah, I mean, I would just encourage people to stick to their own rules. It's like I think the rules are sort of out at this point. It's a little bit of the Wild West again before the industry will figure out how it works. Because economically, it doesn't work on most movies, and that studios are aware of that. I mean, studios are closing all the time, and until we can find a way for it to economically make more sense, with the distribution, that's that gets way beyond me and my experience. But I think in general, it's like it comes down to if you want to do something, you can usually figure it out with the amount of persistence and grit. And yeah, I don't know. That's what I would probably say. I don't know, David, if you have a different answer.
Yeah, no, I think just to add to that, I would say make your movie for somebody, find whatever story you have, pin it against an audience that and a place that and where you have an audience that'll come out to see it too. I think that's something we certainly had some wrong turns, but I think that's something we did really well. Was we obviously know the culture up there and the people groups, and that's who we made it for. So we're like, hey, we know these people are going to show up to see this thing, and when you do that too, then that opens up opportunities for partnerships like the Packers, because the story is so ingrained in their culture too, and Culver's, which they became a huge partner of ours too. So I think, being very specific with your audience can open up a lot of doors. So that would be my number one advice.
Yeah, it's impressive that you guys filmed this without having the rights to the NFL footage in the movie. And what was that a hard thing? Was that an expensive thing to get for you? What were you going to do if you didn't get it?
Yeah, it's a good question. Our lawyer said when we first turned in the draft of the script, he goes, just wait for your cease and desist, boys. It might be coming. And, because you're right on the edge. And I think a lot of good ideas, you're always right on the edge of so many different things. Like that's kind of where you have to live. In this kind of world. But yeah, I think, when we got it in front, it was actually Leroy, your pal. He sent it to the project to NFL Films kind of on our behalf. And we said, here's the kind of footage we want. And they came back and loved it. And we're super excited about the project. And because it has a soul to it, I think it shows everything in a really positive light. It's family oriented, the film. So that was surprisingly, kind of like an easier, cheaper thing than we ever kind of would have hoped or imagined, actually.
And then Culver's, they came in after the fact.
Yeah. So Culver's, we reached out to them actually. We, cause we wanted, when you're an independent film, you need to scale it. In order to scale it in a way without putting a bunch of marketing money in front of the film, you need partnerships to help you get the word out, And so we knew Culver's they have their Thank You Farmers project, which has been going since 2013, I think. But that's they are so passionate about farmers, because they're in the restaurant business, they're in the food industry, and so they know all the work that goes into it and have been supporting agricultural education for a long time. And so when we got it in front of them, I expected a laundry list of like, hey guys, cool movie, but change this, change that, we don't like that, like, can you take that out? But we didn't get any of it. Honestly, they looked at it, and some of them even had tears in their eyes, and they're like, we just love this so much. We want to help be a part of this and get this out to the world. And Craig Culver, when I saw him, he was hugging everybody on their staff. Like, he loves it. They love it as a company because I think it stands for a lot of good and true things that they believe in. And so we ended up, we asked if we could put product placement in there for them. Cause I was like, I just feel like I owe you guys something. Like, can we, try to integrate it? And they were excited about that too. But, I think for them, they're, as a brand, they get a chance to be a part of a really special project that communicates their values and represents farmers in a really good light. So.
Yeah. And I know we've only got a couple minutes left, but I just want to say thank you for involving me in the film. I really enjoyed the heck out of it. That was a lot of fun for me.
Can I ask you a question about that, Charlie?
Yeah.
What was, I wish one of my biggest regrets is that we didn't have you come in and rewrite the whole thing with us, honestly. Like, I feel like we could have like rewritten it and like shot so much, like especially that dinner table scene. I feel like your brilliance could have just accelerated it. But yeah, I was curious, like, from your perspective, what was it like, cause I don't, you get to do this stuff, and I assume you came, I don't know much about your past, but I think you came probably from an acting interest and background. So like, what was it like for you?
It was very cool. I mean, it was the first time I'd had sort of a role like that in a standard film. Obviously, I do all my social media stuff. I was an extra in Public Enemies and Cedar Rapids. And I worked on that film as like a PA, a guy who just got coffee and stuff. So it was cool to have a role and everything like that. And it was fun to improvise. You guys were great about like letting me improvise a little bit. And then, get in there, and kind of the scene was a little bit more emotional, which was like definitely outside of my norm. I'll say that much. The only time I've gotten emotional was comedically so, but it was just a fun, super fun experience. You guys made it so easy on set, just fun to play around with. And it was just awesome. From my standpoint, I really liked it. And at some point I got to see the outtakes,
Yeah. I got them for you.
Yeah, we should send them over. We'll do depending on what the rights and everything, maybe we do a super cut of it or something.
You can do whatever you want with it.
All right. Maybe we'll end the podcast with a bunch of outtakes from it. So that could be fun.
Definitely.
Yeah, and David, I know you gotta go. So just real quick before you guys go, my last question. We do this on all the Cripescast. What makes you say cripes?
In filmmaking, so many things. Like,
I had a feeling
you're constantly getting no's, and I think more what else makes me really say cripes is, I think as filmmakers, you're kind of scofflaw type people. I don't know if you know that term, but you're like, if there's rules, you kind of always bend them a little bit. You're always right on the edge. You're taking so much risk. And so for me, it's when people are so like, oh, you can't do that. That's when I'm like, oh, cripes. I think that's how I feel about it.
Your cripes is when they say, oh, you can't do that. Very Midwest response.
Shouldn't do that. Yeah.
I like it.
In terms of filmmaking, mine's honestly pretty similar. I think it's, an unwillingness to like hear something out, right. Where, you come knocking with honestly a pretty cool opportunity. Like, when we're coming up to film in an area, like it's fun and we bring a lot of like fun things and whatever. So I think when people aren't willing to hear you out on something cool you're trying to do and help them out with, I say cripes to that for sure.
Yeah. Very producer response to that one as well. Like, just hear me out. Okay. I know I'm asking to do it for free, but I'll give you a cameo. It'll be sweet.
Look at these opportunities. Yeah.
Well, this was great, you guys. Thank you so much for coming on. Good luck with the premiere. I'm very excited. I hope it goes great and it's in the theaters for a long, long time. Makes you a lot of money and you can make another one.
Thanks, Charlie. With you, man. With you.
I'd love it. We'll write one. It'll be fun.
Yeah. We're so grateful for you, man. You've been so awesome. Thank you.
Oh, it's been great to be part of. Right back at you. Thank you. No, thank you. Welp, I suppose. Turn a Midwest goodbye out of this real quick.
Well, we'll see you later.
Thank you guys so much. We'll see you soon. And go Packers and fuck the Bears.
There we go. Go Pack, baby.
Awesome. See you guys.
Thanks, Charlie.
That is it for this week, folks. Make sure you go check out Green and Gold. You can follow them at Green and Gold Movie in theaters again, January 31st. You can follow Anders at Lindwall.Anders. You can follow Davin at Davin Lindwall. And go to greengoldmovie.com to get your tickets today. And follow at Cripescast, too. That would be real nice, you guys. And thank you for listening. Everyone, keep her moving. And, shout out to Kali Maraca and Hannah Milos for editing and producing this podcast. Thank you all so much. Watch for deer, and we'll see you next week.
So roll out the barrel and get the band brewing. Life's got you down, just keep her moving. It's on Wisconsin, the Badgers say it's the old Wisconsin Jubilee.
Sometimes when you're ice fishing, you put your foot into walleye hole and go ass over tea kettle, and you think you're done. No, you got to keep her moving.